I'd love to start by just introducing myself very briefly, just in case you see me pop around some of these. As Stephanie said, we have a lot of exciting content that we're going to be rolling out through this Mentorship Monday series for the rest of 2024 and then all throughout 2025 as well. So I'm hoping to, really get to know some of you through these sessions and build these relationships. That being said, not a subject matter expert, so you won't have to hear me, every month. But my name is Megan. My preferred pronouns are she, her, and in my day-to-day role, I work as a talent acquisition specialist here at Loblaw, which basically means I recruit for a living. I look at tons of resumes, I do lots of interviews, and really I'm also just trying to figure out what I want to do professionally. I've only been in the workforce for the majority of the last 2 years and been building my career with one organization in one spot. And I love what I do, and I love, who I do it for in this company, but I'm always wondering, how can I do more? How can I be the best version of myself and grow professionally and just really take on some of those challenges? And I'm hoping maybe that resonates with some of you who might be wanting to add more tools into your tool belt. And so in this lens, we've developed Mentorship Monday in partnership with the BPA to take some of the best leaders, subject matter experts here at Loblaw to provide us with these valuable tools, insights, knowledges from their own shared lived experiences and from their own professional and personal domains to hopefully equip us, because the job, world can be a little bit challenging and daunting and scary at times. But I think that this gives us really great insights and knowledge to help us be the best versions of ourselves and continue to grow. And we're hoping that in today's conversation and future ones, these are going to be pieces of knowledge that you'll take with you and potentially share with your own networks, your own peers, and just help everyone elevate to be the best versions of themselves. So without further ado, our first ever session is going to be on personal branding. And I think that this is a great place to get started because it's all about you and something that you'll continue to work on throughout your personal and professional journey, whether it be with your employer, in your relationships that you build, again, professionally or personally. And no better person to talk with us about personal branding than Bushra. Bushra here is a senior manager with Loblaw. She's been with the business on the Loblaw side for over the past 2 years, working on our employer branding. And I'm not sure how much you may know about Loblaw. I'm hoping that you realize we're a pretty large retailer within Canada. One of the leading retailers, actually. And so if Bushra can help design an employer brand for such a beast of an organization, I just know that she's going to have a lot of valuable insights to help us on an individual scale and learn the impact of what this is when it comes to our professional development as well as personal development. So without further ado, thank you all for being here, and thank you, Bushra, for leading this session. And I'd like to welcome Bushra and her team to, come up and share a little bit more about our personal branding journey together. I just also want to level set some expectations too and share that in my own personal experience, the more you put into this session, the more you will get out of it. And what I mean by that is that it's okay to sit here and listen to the content and take it in. But this is workshop style, where we're going to help you develop these tools so that you can actually start implementing them right away, continue to make iterations and revise them. And so the more engaged you are in a format that you're comfortable with, whether that be coming on camera, coming off microphone, asking questions in the chat or live, the more we can help you apply these tools, these techniques throughout your journey. And we're really here for you, not just to develop our content and just share it to be done, but to really have valuable conversations here today. And so there could be times where we ask you to come up and share some thoughts or give us some feedback, participate in a conversation. And you might be someone that typically shies away from that and would rather, listen to other people speak. But I really encourage you to try to get a little bit uncomfortable today, if you're comfortable doing so, just so that you can get the most out of this content in this session. This is a really great space for us to learn from each other. And so all that I'll say is the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. And now I'm going to pass it over to Bushra.
Thank you, Megan. That was a very, very kind intro and very, very well said. I'd like to echo exactly what Megan just mentioned, is that this whole session is about personal branding in order to elevate your career, right? And this is not coming from, like a topic that we learned from school. This is real life experiences. These are practical things that happen in the real world in order to grow your career. And one thing I could definitely say is, for myself, my journey, my entire professional journey so far has been all about number one, showing up, Number 2, making the right choices. And number 3, always, always, always preparing. Like for me, it's always been about if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. And I think like those are the 3 elements that you're going to kind of see a lot of here. But the first step to doing any of that is recognizing what your superpower is. So I would encourage, actually, in fact, Megan, if this is okay, I would like to encourage everyone to do their best to show up today. And again, come on camera, please engage. I mean, the whole concept of this presentation today is about engagement, and will go a long way if you do participate. So thank you, Megan. I'm just going to echo that. And I'll get right into my intro. So I think Megan has said a lot about me, but I'm Bushra Laik, Senior Manager, Enterprise Employer Branding with LCL for the last 2 years. And I've recently kind of come over to PC Financial to help them with their employer brand. And a really big part of that is personal branding. We work on that with leaders. We work on that with students. We work on that across the organization because our people come first, right? And if we take care of our people, the people will take care of the organization. Now, what I'll do is I'll share my screen and we'll get right into the presentation. Okay. Bear with me here. Just have some technical. Let me try that again. Okay. I don't know if this is like, let me know what you can see when I share my screen. I feel like you can see Megan now.
Yeah, I can see me. Hi.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to try to do this as like a full shared screen. Let me know in the chat if you all can see just the PowerPoint slide. Okay. Alrighty. I'm sorry, I'm just having some issues here. Is it because I'm sharing off the desktop? Give me one moment.
No problem. Perhaps while we're waiting, we could do
Oh,
some
found
intros
it.
in the
Okay.
chat.
It just took a
Maybe.
little bit of time.
Perfect.
Okay, there we go. Awesome. Okay, let me know when you can see my screen.
We got it.
We got it. Okay. And Megan, if there's anything coming in through the chat, if you're okay with that, would you be able to just let me know?
For sure. As anyone has questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and I can monitor that.
Awesome. All right. So for today's session, we're going to talk about how to unleash your superpower, a personal branding breakthrough. And I think this is such a good presentation to have early on in your career. I wish I had this early on in my career, not have to learn things a super hard way. But hopefully this is something that can help you navigate your career development, not just over time and in the beginning, but in the future as well. But first thing I want to do is I actually want to ask those. So can you see the full screen?
No, it doesn't look like it's in presenter mode.
Okay. Great. What about now?
Just
Might have
waiting
to stop
for it to
sharing
pop
and
up.
then share again. Do you mind sharing, Megan, on your end?
I'm just having some issues as well. I'm wondering, Rufy, did you have a copy of the deck you could share your screen? This is why we have 3 different backups going along here. All right, looks like we got a copy. I can confirm once it's full screen.
Okay, let me know if you see full screen.
Bushra, if you don't go full screen, it's still large enough for the participants to see. So you might be okay going with it like that, but it's gone.
Sounds good. No worries. All right. So what is personal branding? Can anyone tell me, and please feel free to kind of open up the, your mic and kind of speak to this, but I would love to hear from you all. What is personal branding? Let me try to reshare this again because I feel like I've lost it again. There we go. Do you see it?
Yes.
Thumbs up. Okay, great. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties, just a part of life. So what is personal branding? I would love to hear the opinions of those on this call. All right, feel free to put it in the chat. Oh, we have Joel or Joelle.
Hello, nice to meet
Hi.
you.
Nice to meet you too.
I when I think of personal branding, I tend to think it's more like how people view yourself in like more of in more of a professional capacity, like how you differentiate yourself from other people in your profession, or like or just how people view your identity, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. Thank you. We have Tendo.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. When I think about personal branding, the first thing that comes to my mind is like your value and how you kind of establish your value, whether it be with like a company or during like an interview, you kind of sell yourself and show them your strengths and your purpose and like all the values that you bring to them and kind of just like what you stand for, which I think is like your personal brand that you're creating based on those values and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's great. Sephra.
I think someone kind of mentioned it a little bit in the chat, but I kind of see it as how you like market yourself, how you market like your skills and like your interests, whether that be like online, just building, I guess also another form of personal branding is like building like your online presence, how you want yourselves to look to like employers online or people online as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. We also have a couple of people in the chat. Kayla Malcolm has said, to me, personal branding is how you represent and showcase yourself. Personal branding by, Aya Khairi. I hope I am pronouncing that correctly. Personal branding is how you market yourself to others. It's about showcasing your skills, values, and personality. So none of you are wrong here. I think it's all a part of all of what you said is a part of what personal branding really means. But what I really want to kind of touch on is a bit of what is it, right? Personal branding is really important because 92% of people trust the recommendations of individuals over companies. So the fact that as an individual, you see influencers online today and you see people selling services and products, it's not because people trust a company necessarily. It's probably because of the people behind it and the messages you hear from testimonials. When you go on Amazon and you want to purchase an item, what's the first thing you do? Does anybody want to tell me what that is?
Reviews.
Exactly. Love it. It's the same way with your personal brand, right? And not to say that you are, a commodity of any kind, but it really genuinely is what people connect with. Another fun fact is that it takes 5 to 7 impressions for someone to remember your brand, which is why frequency and consistency is important. Okay. And a fun fact about LinkedIn, because I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn and I think like LinkedIn can do wonders for someone's career, 77% of recruiters actually use it to reach out to potential candidates. So if you're not on it and you're not active and you're not frequent, chances are you're not really getting that traction that you can potentially get in that space. And lastly, applicants with something negative on their social media profiles are typically turned down by 54% of employers. And we'll actually get a little bit into this conversation because I think it's really important. Personal branding can go positive, but it can also go negative. And I think we need to address both of those and find a good balance. So those are just some fun facts. But what is personal branding? I'm going to try to share my screen here again into slide. Can everyone see like the presentation mode?
Not yet. We can see your slides just on the left-hand side, very small, but it's very legible.
Okay. So what is personal branding? It's not shameless self-promotion. I know that as, oddly enough, an introvert myself, I see personal branding as something that you recognize about yourself. It is not shameless self-promotion. It is, like many of you said in the chat, showing people the value that you can provide, right? What is your special strength, secret special sauce that makes you unique? And so when you identify that, and at an early stage in your career, you're probably still exploring, right? And that's totally okay. This is the time to do that. But recognizing that is literally, I would say, like the hardest part. Once you recognize that, I think the rest can become really easy. And the third part, I know we talk a lot about marketing yourself, right? But what does that really mean, right? Authenticity, having a personal story, but also a professional story is very important to what personal branding is. A little fun fact about me, and I tell people this because, and when I tell people I'm an introvert, people get a little taken aback as well, because I grew up with crippling social anxiety and stage fright. Like in high school, I think I fell off the stage one time because I was so nervous. And I've had my moments, and my first step was actually conquering that. And it was all about kind of honing in on what my gap is. And I was like, I need to make this my strength. And so for me, I've come a long way because I've actually stepped out of my comfort zone to recognize what my strength is. My strength is really educating others. I love learning. I love helping other people, but I'm also very, I would say, strategic. And when you combine all of those things together, I feel like that's when I recognize that my strength is really this. It is a part of public speaking. It is something that I need to do. So just a fun fact there about myself. And so I would love to actually share this. I'm just wondering, Rafita, are you able to share your screen for that next slide? Because I think that it's important for us to go through the order.
It's denying access for me, unfortunately. Yeah.
And yourself as well? I think it's quite zoomed in. Megan, I think it's here, I'm gonna try again. Maybe I'll try sharing my entire screen. Do you see my screen? Do you see this?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. And then what about now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Is it the full slideshow?
Just the presentation.
Oh, okay.
I think it looks
sorry.
good.
It's just a slide. Sorry, it's just a
Yeah,
slide
you're good.
on the sheet.
Okay,
on the
awesome.
screen.
So the importance of authenticity within your personal brand. The way I like to kind of envision it is I can't describe it in words, but I can visually kind of showcase what that means. Your idea of you. So once you've identified what your strength is, and once you've said, okay, this is what I need, what I'm going to hone in on, because this is something that I can do. And I think I can be really, really good at it. And you share that with the world, and your audience's idea of you aligns with your idea of you. That is your personal brand. Okay. You can't make something up. Like I always tell people, like, don't try to like envision a personal brand for yourself and then go for it. You know, it's never going to work that way. Because when you do have a personal brand and it's authentic to who you are and you can constantly deliver on it, you're going to build trust and credibility with your network, with recruiters, with hiring managers. You're going to be able to network and build a sense of community around things that you believe in. And you're going to succeed and grow. And that comes with consistency. And when there is no point of similarity between your idea of you and your audience's idea of you, well, that's really not going to align, and people are going to see through it right away. So you're going to lose that trust and credibility. It's going to be very hard to network with people and create meaningful relationships and a meaningful community around what you believe. And also, it's going to be harder to succeed and grow because ultimately people are going to see through the cracks. So what I always say is, even when we get, and Megan can speak to this a little bit more, is that because she's a recruiter, I'm sure, Megan, you face this where you've had people who look amazing on resumes, right? They have all this really great experience and they have a great portfolio. And then you get on the phone with them and you're kind of like, oh no, like this is not the person I was expecting to speak to. And it's an immediate turnoff.
Yeah, it does happen. But I can also say that sometimes I've had the privilege of hopping on the phone with someone who didn't maybe meet all the criteria that we were looking for on a resume,
Yeah.
but their personality and what they brought to the table and what shone through during an interview has landed them a job rather than always having every skill set needed. So a little bit of both that I've had experience with.
Amazing. And that's like how they chose to show up, right? Because personal branding is not what you show people. It's like how you live as well, right? It's how you show up online and offline. And so, yeah, when that does not align, you're going to get people who just get annoyed. I'm sure Megan's had these reactions in the past. And so what we want to make sure, if there's one thing that I really want you all to take away from that, is understand what your authenticity means to you, because that's something that no one can take away from you. And it's something you should be proud of. And then what does that mean for other people? Okay, great. We're authentic. What does that mean for other people? If you show up in the right way, you're going to be able to add value to people's lives. That's when you can actually show value, right? You can solution problems. Maybe you're a problem solver. Maybe you see a need. Maybe you are spearheading a cause. And my favorite is really impact and transformation. My whole purpose of creating a personal brand for myself was when I see changes. I'm a change maker. That's what I believe. And I love when things are positively impacted. And that way, you're able to build that confidence over time. I think that there are several very smart people on this call. I meet smart people, amazing people every single day. But I think the one thing that people lack a lot of is the confidence to kind of like own it. And when you own it, people can see that you care about something. And when you care, people stop and they listen, they invest in you. And that's how they value your content. So I would say it's not just about being offline. Obviously, you need to be authentic offline, but also show it online. Social media is important. And if you want to thrive in today's digital world, then show up, right? Number one rule, show up. All right. So what is your personal brand, right? What is your brand? Like how I'm talking about all these really cool things, but like how do you actually get there in practical terms? Well, what you input, how you market yourself, how you behave, how you position yourself online and offline plays a huge part. How you brand yourself as it relates to your purpose, right? Like what is your purpose? What is your education? Maybe there's a company you work for. How is that showing up in relation to you? And how relevant is your content? So the content that you engage with, is that adding value to someone's life? right? In a world of Instagram, you'll see that Instagram, TikTok, you name it, actually, a lot of the time, and I would actually love to see, like, in the chat, what is the kind of content that you like seeing? And I'm actually curious. Put it in the chat or speak up. Like, I would love to see what is the content that you love engaging with personally. Whoops. I got cut out. Okay. So let me open the chat here. Sorry, I'm not able to see the chat anymore.
I can moderate you, Bushra. So a lot of people are saying we like little vlogs, little bite-sized pieces of information, lifestyle contents. A lot of people saying vlogs, and I think that's that idea of us being able to get that insight into someone else's life and perspective. We also have a couple people that have said podcasts, some fitness content as well, sports content, podcasts, vlogs. Yeah.
So there's so many different areas and avenues that people speak on that we are addicted to seeing. And that is because they've established that, you know what, like I'm really big on lifestyle. I have something to say through my podcast. You know what, like I am really excited about and inspired by health, and it's what I do. And so they talk about it and they show up not just personally. I know a lot of personal trainers, that's what they do for a living. And they can also show that, and they get a lot of following. Do we have a question?
I think you're good.
Okay, awesome. So let me share this again. All right. And then how do we actually do that, right? So kind of along the lines of what we just talked about, your employer brand. So is there a company you work for that you want to align your values to as you speak? Another way of creating content that is relevant is ESG, which is, environmental social governance. So is there anything in the environment that you're passionate about? Social work, governance, like how to actually kind of maintain that in the world today. Culture and DEI, we have a lot of people who are very passionate about this. I know that at Loblaw, we have an entire team that is responsible for actually making sure that the culture and DEI is on point at all times. Insights. What is your what is your forte? What kind of insights do you have to share with people? Is there a call to action? There's milestones and celebrations. Now, it's not just about professionalism, right? Because all professionals are also human beings. But maybe you've, ran a marathon. That really shows that you're committed to a goal. Maybe you've celebrated 10 years somewhere. Maybe you've graduated. Showcase that and celebrate it genuinely. Storytelling. What is your story? Right? What do you want people to get away from? What do you want people to take away from that story? Are you looking at social media trends, right? We at Loblaw are really good at kind of taking trends that we see on TikTok or Instagram and using it. If it is something that we're aligned with, then we'll use it in our own unique way. And they perform really well. Events and accomplishments. Are there any extracurriculars that you're a part of? Are there any awards that you won? Talk about it. And the last one I really like is recognition, because I feel like your brand is not just about talking about yourself or talking about things. It's also about talking about others, and for me, like that's a sign of a true leader is when you're able to take a step back, reflect on somebody else's accomplishments and really let that shine as well. It says something that is a lot about how reflective you are as a leader. And so think about that. Who's the next person you want to recognize on your LinkedIn or your social? can go a really long way. Okay. And so now I'm going to kind of give the screen over to Megan. And I want to know what your superpower is. So I know Megan has a little bit of an activity for us.
I do. Thank you, Bushra. So what is your superpower? This is going to be interactive, and I just want to say thank you everyone that's been so engaged in the chat and putting your hand up and joining us in the conversation. This one's going to be a little bit easier in terms of your engagement. I'm going to post a link, and I'm going to work on sharing my screen. Bear with me as we've all seemed to have some technical difficulties. Perhaps you can let me know when this is live. But I'm going to be sharing a poll. It's going to be a word cloud that we can actually generate together. Bushra, can you confirm when you can see it?
Yep.
Perfect.
I
So
would
at the
just scroll
top-
down a little bit so that people can scan the QR code if needed.
Okay, perhaps it's zoomed in. 2 seconds. So I also posted a link in the chat, and when I pull this back up, you should be able to see the QR code as well as a number generated at the top. Can you see the QR code now?
Yep.
Perfect. So if you have a device, you can scan this QR code. It's going to take you straight into this form, and we can actually put our answers in real time. So do some reflecting right now, a couple seconds. Think about what exactly that superpower is. Yes, caring. Again, you can use that code at the top as well. Go to menti.com or use the link I posted in our Zoom chat. And you can, yes, keep bringing in the answers here. Empathy, caring, leader, storytelling, motivating, innovative. I love that. Loving, love it. Love loving. All right, keep getting your answers in. This is amazing.
That's awesome.
And together we're building this word cloud of everyone's superpowers, which I think is
Level-headed.
amazing. And you'll see it continues to change as we all put our input in, which is amazing.
Nice. Helping others, ambitious, motivating people, teaching. That's awesome. Any more? Detail oriented. That's a really underrated skill. And so is level headed. You'd be surprised at how amazing it is to have people who are easy to work with.
Yeah, this is great. Keep it coming, everyone. You can submit as many as you want. I'm sure you'll continue to think of more and more superpowers that you have. We want to hear about them. This is beautiful. And the more someone actually submits like the same type of word, the bigger it kind of gets. So you can see some of these similarities of potentially these drivers that we feel, are part of us and what we bring to the table. And that's really cool to see as well. A lot of motivating
responses. I love it. Amazing. Okay, I'm going to start actually picking on a few people because I would love to kind of hear why you feel like that is your strength. And
Sorry,
so
you knew that?
Yeah. Are we going to share it back up?
I got you.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, let's see here. Who had level-headed? Raise your hand. Who was level-headed? Okay, awesome. Are you okay to come off mute and kind of explain why you feel like that is your superpower? You can also put it in the chat.
Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
I think that being level-headed is my superpower because I think it's important to be able to see things from other people's perspectives and understand how another person would feel in a situation and react accordingly and not overreact or just be
Yeah, no,
understanding.
I love that because I think that's also empathy. because that is actually a very underrated skill as well. And I feel like the best leaders out there and the people that succeed the most have the ability to see things through other people's eyes and have a different perspective and be able to really reflect on that. So I think that's great. That's awesome. Okay, who is let's see here. Let's see here. I'm going to go with dreaming. That's interesting. Who is dreaming? Raise your
Hey,
hand.
hi, it's me.
Hi. How's it
Uh,
going?
good, good. Thank you so much. So I think dreaming is my strength because it fuels my vision for the future. Like I'm consistently thinking of new possibilities and imagining how things could go better. Like dreams. My dreams give me a direction or inspire me to work harder towards my goal. I believe, yeah, that's it.
Awesome. So like you're a visionary.
Oh, you can say that. Thank you so much.
I like that. No, of course.
Thank
And I
you.
would love to hear, Megan, do you want to pick one? Rafita, do you want to pick one? We'll do
I
two more.
want to hear passion for learning because as someone that hires people for a living, I want to hire like 100 of you. That's amazing. So whose passion for learning? That's so incredible. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Don't be shy. Remember, best thing to do is always show up. Who's the passionate learner here? Okay. I think we'll go with another one.
Oh, I think we got a
Oh.
message.
Oh.
Aya Khairi, she said that on. It's me on the chat.
Oh, nice. Aya, do you mind explaining your passion for learning? Toheeb? I think you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I actually I put in enthusiastic, which is kind of like in line with like passion for learning in my view. So I added it because like most of my time in school, right, when it comes to like learning content in class, I don't really like surface reading, like just like reading just to like pass. I love like deep learning, like I go even like deeper than expected, right? That's why I think, yeah, I really love learning in that sense.
That's awesome. All right. I think those are all really great answers. I think that we can actually move on to the next part of it. Thank you, everyone, for participating and even getting a little uncomfortable if that's what you just went through. But just know that, like, I will remember your name. Megan's going to remember your name. Rafita's going to remember your name. So thank you so much for participating. Alrighty. So I think I'm going to reshare my screen here. Thank you for everyone's patience with this. All right. So that was amazing. We got a nice word cloud out of that. One thing that I really want to talk about here is the 3 eyes, right? And I'm actually going to, I've been like sipping on my my mug of tea here. And I'm curious to know, do you see this? Who is that? What's the sign?
I see an S.
What? Sorry. I feel like let me just go off blur.
Someone got it. Superman. Or there's
There
a
you
couple of
go.
them.
Okay, awesome.
Everyone's got it.
So
Mhm.
I like to use the 3 eyes, and I should have mentioned this before, but when it comes to having a personal brand, it's not that hard to remember the formula for it. There's 3 eyes: identifiable, there's impactful and influential. Now, I say that because if you see Batman, right? I'm a comic book nerd. If you see a bat, like a Batman sign up in the sky, right? You know exactly who that is. You're like, that's Batman. Just like my cup, you know this is Superman, right? You know what he stands for. You know the impact that they have. They're superheroes. Then you know what they stand for, justice. And then you also know that they have influence, meaning like what they say matters, what they do matters. And so everyone should be striving when it comes to personal branding, should be striving to connect with the 3 I's moving forward. If you're doing something, let's say, you know, you're putting up a post about an initiative, always think about like, how is this identifiable to me, right? Does it have the impact that I want it to have? And is it going to influence people in a positive way? And so if you remember the 3 I's, you're gold. Thanks for sending that in, Megan. It's great. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to go to the next slide. I think we have a little bit of time left. How can you apply your personal brand? We talk about, you know, identifying what your strength is, what your impact can be, but how do you apply it in the real world? That's what matters. I'm going to speak on some of these, but I think that Megan would be great when it comes to some of these too, to kind of explain what that is. The first one is going to be coffee chats. You would be super surprised at how many people are willing to have a coffee chat with you, especially in larger organizations. It is such an underrated thing. I think the only kind of obstacle or boundary that you need to get past is your own. And that is kind of holding back. Like I, for the longest time, was super shy. Why would anybody want to have coffee with me? Why would anybody want to chat with me? But you'd be surprised at how effective it is if you simply just ask. And that's how you apply your personal brand. Tell your story. This is where you can actually talk about the kind of impact and influence that you want to have. And you can have a leader or somebody influential actually help you with that. Networking is another really big one. Are you building a network? Or are you sitting behind your computer just posting stuff, right? I talk about this a lot, is that online personal branding is important, but offline personal branding is equally as important. So what you put into it is how much you're going to get out of it, like Megan mentioned. Applying for a new co-op and full-time job. How are you showing up, right? I think like it's really important, especially in today's day and age, to show up in the right way. If you don't show up, how are people going to know you're there? Which is, you know, like probably the easiest thing you can do. And I tell Megan this, I feel like we've had this conversation a few times already, Megan and Rafita, is that even when I'm having a crappy day, unless I absolutely cannot get out of bed, I show up. And when I show up, things just work out. And so for me, it's like if I have a goal set in mind, the first thing I'm going to do is put myself in that situation and be present.
Yeah. And these are, I think, the areas where you hope to see alignment with your own personal brand in terms of like, this is the real world application. And so, for example, if we're talking about job applications, I mean, let's be honest here, it's a lot of work to apply to jobs. I know it, you know it. But if you're someone and you believe that you're a detail-oriented person and you haven't changed your cover letter to specify which job you're applying to, right? And you left in last application's cover letter. You misstepped with the, company you're applying to or the role you're applying to. And you always think it's never going to be you. And it probably won't be, but it could be, because you'd be surprised how many of those resumes and job applications I get that are talking about the wrong role or the wrong company, or even highlighting some skills that it's like, well, this job calls for Excel. You haven't talked at all about your Excel skills that you may or may not have, but at least you're talking about, your PowerPoint skills. So I think it's, again, that level of, is the way you're applying this really in line with your own personal brand? Can you be a detail-oriented person if you're not taking that care or effort into seeing some of those? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be. I mean, I'll be honest, like, I'm not the most detail-oriented person. It doesn't mean I don't have other superpowers, but maybe then that's not actually in alignment to my own personal brand. So just my 2 cents.
No, that's amazing. And that's great insight. And Megan sees this all the time in her profession every day. So I think that really says something to, like, you talk the talk, but you got to walk it too. And that's a big part of applying this as well. Now, the next one is elevator pitch. Important, really important. One thing that I've learned in my career is that if you're able to speak to your strength in a compelling way in a very short period of time, you're going to get ahead of everyone. Not everyone has the time to listen to your entire story sometimes. An elevator pitch shows how confident you are, and it also lets people know exactly what you want them to know about you. If there was one thing, think about it. Take the time to reflect. So you've kind of identified your strength, or maybe you're exploring your strength. That really makes you somebody who is curious. Like, I'm still exploring, and my biggest thing is to explore and hone in on the strengths that I recognize about myself. Having an elevator pitch ready and customizing it to what you're applying is very important. And so that is something that you should work on. And we'll talk a little bit about how to break that down in a bit. And the other thing really is interviewing and self-awareness. So I'm going to let Megan take this one as well, because I think, like, you're a lot closer to the self-awareness piece, and kind of speak to what that means in a good light and a bad light.
Sure. And I want to be transparent, and I want this to be authentic, because I think, again, like, you guys are being vulnerable with us. We want the same for you, so that you can get out of this what you need to. And even on that, I want to just briefly highlight elevator pitches, because I think that if I, quite honestly, attended this session maybe 2 years ago, I would have thought, well, when am I ever going to need an elevator pitch, right? Like, when am I going to be in an elevator with someone that's really going to ask me these questions or care? Coming to Loblaw, we are almost like trained. Like, what if you get stuck in the elevator with the CFO or the president? What are you going to do? But even if you don't belong to an organization where you potentially might have those run-in encounters, maybe you work virtually, maybe you're working part-time, whatever that may look like for you, I can tell you firsthand that we have cashiers within our stores, deli clerks within our stores that have met with our senior most executives, other senior executives at other companies, right? They're interacting in the public. And to go as far as first to say, how's your day going? Like, I can't even tell you the last time, honestly, someone helped me with my groceries and asked me how I was doing or how my day was. Not that anyone has to, but again, it kind of speaks to, like, who you are as a person, right? What is your personal brand? Are you caring? Are you empathetic towards others? And from there, you might go, I'm good. How's your day? Or what are you up to later today? Like, it starts conversations. We've hired people into corporate offices because of those conversations, by simply, checking out groceries. And I can attest that firsthand by having some of our senior leaders be so impressed with the level of service, the quality of care. It's how you show up. I think you're sensing a theme here. So applying that into interviewing, we're all going to go through interview in our life. Even if you've never had the opportunity to have a coffee chat, you're going to have an interview at one point in your life, probably multiple throughout your life. And this is great. These are great experiences. I've been on the other side of them more than I've ever been interviewed. And I can say that there are people that crush it. There are people that do so well, that are so prepared. They might even bomb a few questions. Like, honestly, they might not even answer all the questions right or properly, but they can still crush that interview and land the job because they showcase who they are and what value they're going to add. It's sometimes a value add. Sometimes an organization might say, we don't need the person that meets 100% of the job requirements. We'll take the person that can meet 70% of them, but can actually highlight the value and skills that they're going to bring to this team. Soft skills matter. They're worth a lot, especially in some of these technical roles or business facing roles where you might think, like, what difference does it make? I work with data, or I do this, or I work in the field. But we need this because organizations are people first, right? It's people business. And if you're not making those strong relationships, there's only so far you can actually advance. So you can actually start showing those skills in interviewing. And this is where I want to give everyone an insider tip and trick here, because I want you to take value away from this session. And I know for me, I'd be like, okay, and I want to apply to a jobs, right? Like, what's going to help me land that dream job? One of the first questions you probably are going to get asked is, tell me about yourself, right? And I'm sure you all have a good script prepared for tell me about yourself, because 99% of the time you're going to get asked that question. And again, being honest with you, before I started in this job, my answer to that was very scripted, because I know who I am, right? And in theory, what you want to share. And so I'd say I'm a new graduate, or, I'm going to this school and I've done X amount of years working in retail, right? Or I'm hoping to work in this field. It was about me on paper, but it wasn't me. Like, that's not who I am, right? Just because I worked in retail for 5 years doesn't mean that's like who I am. That's just what I did. And so I assure you that in your interview, you're going to have time to talk about your work experience. They're going to dive in because they need to know that. But when they say, tell me about yourself, it's not wrong to give that summary of your experience or your education or even your skills. But what's going to set you apart is by leveraging your superpower here. Okay. So if I interviewed 10 people, say the 30 of us on this call today, and everyone had a little bit of that standard script of, I have these skills, or I'm working here, that's great. I need to know that at some point, right? But the one person that says to me, I'm a detail-oriented profession who is curious to learn more, right? I'm someone that loves inspiring others, and I like to go the extra mile to help my team. I am someone that's always eager to contribute, and I like to learn from data. I like to use critical thinking to make business decisions. Mind blown. Like, all of a sudden I'm like, tell me more, right? Tell me everything about you, because now you've piqued my interest. I already knew what school you went to and where you worked because I have it on paper, but oh my gosh, now I have that, and I know that you're amazing. And all of a sudden you're going to have a little bit more of that authentic, non-scripted conversation. Again, it starts with you being vulnerable and sharing a little bit about as to like who you are, putting that thought behind your brand, and then sharing it with others and owning it, being like, yes, I am that person. And I think that sometimes Bushra shared she's an introvert. A lot of you shared in the chat you're introverts, whether you're introverted, extroverted. Maybe you're not that confident in sharing, like, do I have these skills, or am I still working on these skills, right? Like, maybe I like working with data, but I'm never going to be the best person in the room that, can work with data and perform these functions. That's okay, right? Don't second guess what you bring to the table just because you haven't been doing it for that long, or you're new to the field, or whatever that looks like. And if you're someone like me that, has a little bit of that imposter syndrome and is always wondering, like, there's probably someone else that's a little bit better than this, even in my best things, trust what other people say about you. It's not easy to always receive compliments when people say you're, so great at presenting, or I love the energy that you bring. You might feel like, oh no, like, right. But trust that as your own, and then own it and pitch it back and be like, yeah, I am that person that loves speaking in front of others. I love to motivate people, right? Because that's the value that you bring, and people are coming to you saying, this is your value as a person. And that's incredible. That is your superpower. And that's what can get you hired in an interview, or at least get you to another interview. I'm not saying that you don't need the relevant skills to get a job. Please don't hear that. But I'm just saying that if all else was made equal and everyone had the same level of experience in Excel, the person that's able to showcase what motivates them, what value they're going to bring, that unique identifier that makes them different, that's the person that gets hired. So that's my 2 cents.
Mic drop. I love that. I know that we are at time. I don't know.
I think you have some time. You can keep going.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So one thing that I really want to touch on as well is social media. It's very, very important for us to talk about this, because in this day and age, it's very important to see how, speaking of self-awareness, it's very important to recognize how you're showing up, right? And personal branding can be amazing for you in a very positive way, but it can also be very negative just depending on how you show up. And so there, you know, like it's very important because once you put something online, it never goes away. And as amazing as it can be, and LinkedIn is a very, very powerful tool to get the amount of engagement that you want, ensure that you're being self-aware of what you're saying. Now, I get authenticity as a thing. I am a huge preacher for authenticity, but I don't believe that, for example, having a political view about something and being very passionate about it, and you know this view can cause a lot of damage, and putting that up and saying, I'm being authentic is not the same thing as you recognizing your superpower and using it in the right way. All right. And so that is very important. Does anybody, like, you know, raise your hand or, like, you know, put in the chat if you've ever felt like you've seen something and by seeing that comment or by seeing that piece of content, you've judged somebody?
Yeah, honestly, all the time.
Yeah. All day, every day. And that's never going to go away because that's kind of like first impression is your last impression. And honestly, it's not even the first impression. Like I can look up to a leader, I can look up to a person who's very influential. And the moment I see something that is morally wrong or I see something that I don't align with and I don't think should be there, I'm automatically going to kind of pull back and refrain from seeing that person's content. And we know this, like, you know, it's very important to make sure that your self-awareness and your brand is represented in an authentic way, but there are certain boundaries and there are fine lines here. What I do want to kind of get from that as well is that Megan mentioned something about owning your strength, right? And so, sorry, I'm just reading the chat at the same time. Oh, meeting Galen. Yeah. That's awesome. So I think, like, with that said, if you're ever in a situation where you believe in a cause and you feel like, yes, it is going to may have a negative impact on it, always consult with somebody else. That's what I do. Like, I don't know if anybody like else does this on Instagram, but like before I post a caption, sometimes I ask my friends if, like, you know, which caption's better. And
Or if it's
honestly, like
appropriate.
that's, yeah, no, definitely. And like even in our space, like Rafida and I are on the same team here, and Megan's seen a lot of this too, is even when we speak on behalf of an organization, we're very meticulous about how we show up, how we speak on certain things, how we speak on occasions. But the one thing we do is what we know we do right, we own it. We really own it. And one thing that I've experienced myself and Rafida, like Megan, anybody else in this group who wants to kind of chat about that, is you will have a lot of obstacles, especially in the beginning of your career, where you're going to doubt yourself, right? Even if somebody says something nice about you, one little thing happens that is negative, and you're going to kind of retract and take that back. But learn to believe that, learn to recognize what your superpower is, learn to take that in, reflect on it, take the time to actually reflect on it, and keep going, because time doesn't stop for anyone. It's going to go with or without you. And especially when you are so young in your career, you have the time and you have the space to make mistakes. And it's only when you make mistakes and you learn that you recognize what your true strengths are. Just like me falling off the stage, right? Like I kind of recognized like what my gap was. I made a mistake and I said, you know what? Like, this is ridiculous. Why do I care about what other people think when I'm on stage? Like, I know I can do this really well. I know I can speak on what I know. I know my stuff. And it's constantly reflecting and reminding yourself that this is your strength. Who cares what society says, right? Like, who cares what, you know, your jealous friend says? Like, I feel like there's going to be so many instances in your career where people are going to try to bring you down. But if you think about your 3 eyes, that's all that really matters at the end of the day. Okay. Now, I think we should move on to the next slide. I've talked a lot. How your personal brand influences your elevator pitch. And so we talked a lot about elevator pitch, and Megan did a really good job kind of painting a picture of what that looks like, right? What are your unique attributes? How do you put that in your elevator pitch? The worst thing you can do is start by saying, I go to this university and this is what I specialize in. Like, there's more chances that your recruiter, your hiring manager has already read that about you, and that's why you're in that interview, right? And so how are you actually including it in your unique story? What is the unique attribute about yourself? And what is it about that attribute that you want the person in front of you to know about? Okay. How do you want to communicate it? Do you put it in a story, in a scenario? Or do you talk about it in a more, direct and assertive way? And then how can you use that to elevate your pitch? So you can have a pitch about yourself, but once you put that, that spark of what your strength is, you can even say in your elevator pitch that, I believe that in my journey, I faced A, B, and C. And as a result, my superpower has now become, D, like whatever it is. And I think like people are very intrigued by the fact that you're able to have a journey, you've learned something and you've applied it. And so when in doubt, remember your 3 I's. And also, I think this is a really good slide to take a picture of when you're constructing your elevator pitch, as you go into interviews, as you network, as you talk to people in coffee chats, and also social media. I think that's going to be very, very important. All right. Now I'm going to stop sharing again. Does anybody have any really quick questions before we get into our next activity? Okay, I will hand it back over to Megan.
Okay, hi again, friends. Just as we wrap up here, I think it would be great to do a little wrap up together, I think, and continue to ask questions if you have them. Bushra will stay on just for a little bit to address any questions. But I want to give you a takeaway, because if you're someone like me, I think of things later on. I'm sinking it in. I might participate right now, but then something clicks a couple hours from now, eating dinner tomorrow, driving in. Yeah, okay, that resonated with me. So I want to give us something to look back on. We're going to do another word cloud together. I'm posting the link in the chat, and I'm going to share my screen again, where you'll hopefully see the QR code version. Again, it's a new slide. And I just want you to think of one of those nuggets that was like a really highlight to you, something that you're taking away that really stood out to you. And then we can compile this together, and we can use this to reflect back upon. I'll share a copy with you as well. No wrong answers here. So scan the QR code or enter this code into the menti.com link that I sent. Take a moment to think on one of those takeaways. There's been a lot, I know, but what's lovely about coming together as a group and learning from each other is that what resonated with me might not be the same as what resonated with you, right? And this is why we say, take what you need out of this. So hopefully you can see my screen, and hopefully you can scan the QR code and we'll start getting some responses in. Yeah, get your elevator pitch ready, right? Not just having one, but getting it ready. Authentic. Yes, authenticity is big, right? Network, yep, for sure. I realize that there might be a character limit, and so I'm sorry, but if you just want to throw keywords in there, that'll be fine. Elevator pitch. Tell me about yourself. Yeah, tell me about yourself, guys. Always prep for that one. Offline, personal branding, authenticity. See how some of these are getting bigger too? It means we're taking away some key themes together. Comfort and discomfort. Yes, I love that. Tell me about yourself. Show uniqueness. Love it. First impression is key. That's a big one. I think I really resonated personally when Bushra said, your first impression is your last impression, because like, dang, like that's a lot of value we have to put in that now, right? And being conscientious about words and perception, because language is valuable. And you'll notice that through some of these professional branding themes, we're going to do a little bit more workshops on language and utilizing it effectively, and again, making sure that it's representative of you and the messages you're trying to convey. But I think it all goes back into your personal brand as well. These are great. You can keep them coming. I'll leave this up for a little bit as well.
I want to say something along the lines of first impression is key as well. One thing that I love seeing from my team is somebody who is responsive, right? And I think that if you also are too late to make a first impression, I think that for me is you're going to have so many people coming in before you making a first impression higher. And then if it's like something that comes in late, then you're kind of like, oh, well, that's great, but it's too late. We already hired somebody. But I think that first impression, so if there is something that you're excited about, something you're passionate about, just put it up, speak about it, apply for that job, right? If you're questioning whether you want to apply for it or not, always apply for it because you're not losing anything from it. And that really shows eagerness. People love eagerness, especially when you're young and you're willing to learn and you're passionate. That's definitely the first step into having a good reputation as you come into an organization.
Amazing.
Great answers.
So as we wrap up then, it looks like, oh, sorry, actually, Bushra, I think we just have a question on the chat. We'll take some time now for so many questions. Again, we're not in a rush. We're here for you guys. We know we've kept you for a little bit. So as I said, we'll continue to wrap up. But any questions you have, Bushra, I'll let you take the chat question. Or I can moderate it for you. So it says, how can I show my elevator pitch or personality before landing an interview beyond just submitting my resume? So I think in the lens of that, sometimes getting that interview can be really hard, right? So how can we actually, start sharing who we are, that elevator pitch, if in the event we, haven't yet landed the interview?
Yeah, sorry, I just want to make sure I'm not on mute. So how I can show my elevator pitch, what I love seeing is thumb-stopping content. Like I always talk about this, but especially when we hire our interns, right? Like you can have an elevator pitch and be waiting for an interview, or you can literally post something that you're passionate about. And I call it thumb-stopping content because it's like when you're scrolling and then you stop and you're like, oh, who is this person? I'm going to keep that person in the back of my head. Again, it's how you show up. And we love that stuff. And it's the consistency of it too. What does this person have to add? I feel like this person would be a great add on my team because we have a need for somebody who is very passionate about this subject. And so I would say get on social media, make an impact, add value. I wouldn't recommend constantly like messaging a leader. Like I know a lot of people do that. What I appreciate more is sometimes I've seen resumes actually come to my inbox. And that's been very cool. Like I've top of my inboxed it just to make sure like if this falls through, I have this person, great resume, very eager. I do have a child coming down. I'm just being my authentic self. He's ready for bedtime, but apologies on that. And then the next question is, which for me is the hardest part getting an interview as a person who's graduating in December?
I think that was like building off of, this idea. And one recommendation I have is that sometimes, as I said, if you're on socials, primarily LinkedIn, just from like a personal social perspective, a lot of people will like follow the recruitment teams, the hiring managers, and send them messages. That's great. Don't necessarily expect a reply. I know I have like literally 700 people in my inbox I haven't replied to because I just can't reply to all of them. But what I can say is that once you connect with someone, you can engage with their content. And then you their feeds start popping up on your feeds once you're mutual connection. So it's not always necessarily that, elevator pitch that you dropped in their, LinkedIn DMs. But again, if you can get them attracted to your page so that your social presence is very in line with your brand and it's authentic, they will take notice of that. When I see someone that, okay, yeah, they followed me, okay, it's been a week. I see, okay, this name keeps popping up. This name keeps popping up. I might go in there and look. All of a sudden I see their LinkedIn tagline, right? That headline. That's an amazing spot to put your superpower, because it's the first thing I'm going to see. A hiring manager is going to see if they're on your LinkedIn, right? Not just what you're doing, but who you are, what skills you have, right? I'm a dedicated data analyst. Okay, amazing, right? I'm a problem solver, like stuff like that. And I think that you can showcase your superpowers, your elevator pitches through your socials, which can help in the event that you haven't yet been shortlisted for interview. So hopefully that helps answer your question. As I said, we're here with any other questions, but I don't see many. So I think we can wrap up now.
Okay, sounds good. I was gonna give you an analogy. We actually have a person here with us today, Rafida, who is a part of my team, newly a part of my team. And Rafida, do you want to explain how you became a part of my team? Remember, like, we didn't even put a job posting up yet, and I guess she had heard from a friend of a friend that, like, Loblaw was hiring, and literally the next morning, I see Rafida's resume in my inbox, and she came with everything. Like, she literally was like, this is my chance. She sent me her portfolio. She sent me her resume, sent me a nice email. And I was like, how do you say no to somebody like this? And so that was very great. So Rafida, just a big, shout out to you.
Thank
being
you.
an
Appreciate
example
it.
of what that is.
Thank you. Honestly, at the end of the day, it does, with one of the words shared, being comfortable with the discomfort and just trying to find your niche and trying to find something that kind of fills you up, as your own personal brand, like something that actually speaks to you, and you just go with it. I feel like whenever you harbor in your discomfort, in your comfort, then it doesn't get you any far in life. You just stay stagnant. So it's nice to kind of just explore different avenues, different routes, reach out to different people, make those connections and network, and you'll get far. And if it's not far, you'll get to another step. Like, you're always moving forward.
Very true. Love it. Thank you so much for sharing. And I also just want to build off this idea and say that it is people you know. You'd be surprised how big your network actually is and the people you know. And people can help you get jobs, and they can also potentially stop you from getting jobs, and not necessarily in the way of referrals or things like that. Like, you'd be surprised. You don't need big referrals or big name drops to work for large organizations or small organizations or whatever that looks like for you. But the connections you make along the way, the impact you have on your current teams, it's a small world, like a small world. You could find yourself working for like a Fortune 500 company, and the next person's manager might say, like, I might be thinking of hiring Busher, and someone could say, oh, I don't know, like, I worked with Busher before, right? And it kind of sucks. Like, it's people's perceptions, right? But that's why it's so important to care and show up, right, when you can, because people do take notice of that. And I wasn't meaning to pick on Busher. I was just, she was right here. So yeah, I don't mean for that to scare you in any way. I think, again, we just had a really transparent and vulnerable conversation here tonight about what this means and the impact it has, right? It's all about the impact. We want you to take these learnings with you and continue to apply them, not just now, not just over the next few weeks, but forever. And again, not to scare you, but because just like your resume, a living, breathing document, this is going to follow you as well. This is the impact you're making to others and how you show up for them, in front of them, at work, outside of work, right? Are you the type of person that's like so nice inside the building and then doesn't hold the door on the way out? I don't know, right? But people take notice of that. So I'm not just saying this to, be blunt, but I think it's important that we all be really self-aware as to who we are and own it. We're not perfect people, okay? A lot of us have imperfections, and that's okay. But let's celebrate what makes us unique. Let's celebrate those strengths instead of dwelling upon, I wish I could do this, or I wish I had more of that, because you're amazing. And I know I sound like some after school special right now, but you truly are. And I mean that. And there's an amazing job out there for you. Whether you have it right now, you're working towards it, you're going to find that right spot. And it might not be the next one, but like Rafida said, you're one step closer, right? moving up and moving forward doesn't necessarily mean that it's all going to come together quickly, but it's happening for you. And that's the whole point of this Mentorship Monday series. We have a lot of exciting content planned. We kicked it off with Busher, and I want to thank her and her team so much for their time tonight in developing this for us and being able to share and have these raw conversations with us. I think it was really valuable. I hope that you had some takeaways. And building off of this, we shared that we know the job search is not easy. Professional development, building yourself, investing in you, it's not easy, especially when the climate is competitive and challenging. But that's why we want to host these series, to give you the skills, the knowledge, the advice that you could potentially move, and take moving forward. So our next session will fall in the third week of November, and that's going to be a resume remix. So we're starting with your brand. Now we're going to have to start applying it into actual job applications. We're trying to follow a theme here. And so we really hope to see many of you and many more of you on our resume remix, where we're going to bring in multiple recruiters from the business, full-time permanent positions, student positions, corporate roles, non-corporate roles, to help showcase what the process looks like and how to stand out in your applications and just build a strong one. And now you also have the skills prior to applying, during your application, and post applying, thanks to Busher's session on professional branding. So feel free to connect with us. Thank you so much for your participation tonight. We really enjoyed it. We hope you all have a great rest of your night, successful rest of your week, and thank you to the BBPA.
Thank you, everyone. It was such an honor presenting to all of you here today.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Busher. Have a
everyone.
great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.